The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Biggs, is recognized for 5 minutes for questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank the witnesses for being here. I want each of you to answer this question as succinctly as possible. Who owns the genetic information at 23andMe? Ms. Wojcicki.
What we have said in the past is that you're the individual, always owns their genetic information.
Okay, so I'm going to leave it right there. The owner, you've said, is basically the person who submitted their genetic information. Mr. Selsovich?
The owner of the genetic information is the customer at 23andMe.
You agree with that, Professor Hugh?
In their terms, they say that they can sell data.
Okay. Yeah, so, yeah, not that they can sell, but that the actual ownership rights, and when you own it legally, you got a bundle of rights. And then I think, Mr. Selsovich, you said that there was, that there's a license for use, and I think that, Ms. Wojcicki, I thought I heard you say that too, that somebody opts in, they're providing a license for use, either for research or other use. Is that fair? You're operating on a license agreement at that point.
Our customers, basically provide consent for us to use their data.
Strike that. Let's hold on.
Okay.
Let's not get funny with the words. Are you given a license to use it?
Congressman, with all due respect, I'm not a lawyer.
Okay.
I do know that our customers are always given the right to consent or remove that consent to use their data for research purposes.
All right. So we'll leave it there for a second, and let's just get to liability, because even in a license agreement, you can breach a license agreement, and even if someone provides consent, you can abuse a consensual arrangement. And the question is, who has liability at that point? And I would suggest to you 23andMe does. Would you agree with that, Ms. Wojcicki?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
If you guys, 23andMe, were to violate what apparently is not a license, but some kind of consent agreement, you would have a liability for that, for failure to protect the markers.
If 23andMe violated the consent, yes, then I would believe there would be an issue.
Mr. Selsovich, you agree with that?
Yes, I believe 23andMe has a duty to uphold the consent that our customers have agreed to and that we've agreed to with them.
Okay. Professor Hu?
And then, yes, in the breach litigation, I think the class action shows that there was liability.
Right. And so let's now compare it to just national security for just a moment. Professor Hu, what specific vulnerabilities in our current laws allow this data to be exploited, the data we're talking about that 23andMe is sitting on?
Yeah, I'm deeply concerned that if it is, faced with a foreign investor, which has already been brought up, whether or not there could be other ways in which there could be, once there's a breach, that it can fall into a foreign adversary's hands.
Let's get back to the liability for just a sec again, because this is driving me crazy. As one who owns the genetic information, let's say I did, at any point you said I can withdraw consent. Can I order you to destroy that genetic information?
Yes, you can. Our customers always have the right of ownership. They can have complete control over their data. They can access it. They can edit
I'm
it.
talking about specifically the sample as well as the data.
Yes, they can
you agree with
request
that?
a deletion of their data, which we will, and we would delete that data, and they can request, and at the same time, if we had a saliva sample, which they agreed to have biobanks, we would destroy that as well.
Professor Hu, Americans are really concerned about domestic surveillance programs. Believe me, FISA has been abused by our own government, et cetera. How can Congress prevent the U.S. government from having unauthorized access to 23andMe's genetic data?
I think that what we need is to expand HIPAA and we need to expand GINA. We need to have greater, I think, protections and cybersecurity assurances.
So I'm going to lay this at you. With the abuse of FISA that we have seen, and these are massive databases being accumulated on American citizens, and inquiries being made by the FBI without any kind of judicial authority, nor with consent of the individual. Do you think, Ms. Wojcicki and Mr. Selsovich, that you guys have taken, 23andMe has taken adequate protective measures to prevent incursion from any or any state or non-state actor? I mean, you know you had the problem where you were hacked, so what have you done then to make sure that you're secure against even things like the U.S. government? And as a compound question, have you ever received a request from the federal government or any other governmental entity to have access to a particular DNA sample that perhaps might be in your database?
The gentleman's time has expired, but the witness will be allowed to answer the question.
Okay. I'll take the second question first. You know, the company has published, you know, on our transparency page, which is a public page on our website, you know, requests that we've received from law enforcement with regard to DNA data that the company has held. At no time have we actually provided that data to law enforcement or other authorities. Second, you know, basically after the cybersecurity incident, we have taken additional steps to secure the data that we have at 23andMe from both, you know, foreign actors or any type of threat actor, including, you know, in providing additional encryption over the data, you know, putting in additional security measures, and for simple access to customer accounts, adding in two-factor authentication and requiring all our customers to reset their passwords and ensuring those passwords and usernames have not been used in other compromised websites.